Hello there, my name is Bruce Rain from Brankus Creations and welcome to my live stream. Thank you very much for joining. I do apologise for not live streaming last week. Rather a lot going on at the moment, and to be honest, this weekend was nearly a non-event, but I have managed to find a little bit of time. Today will have to be a fairly quick sort of recap and live stream, and for that I apologise, but yeah, it's just I got lots of work on at the moment, which I shouldn't complain about, but and of course a box just arrived the other day with 8 more recaps in it. I still have the most incredible backlog of recaps. It's just crazy. It's a jolly old fat man. Where? Okay, so a little quick hello. Hello, Mike. Hello, Michael. Hello, Tridale. Thomas is here. Who else have we got? Jay is here. SadMac356. Sam. Oh man, is it an R and an A? Sam Perner. Hello. Justin is here. Hello. Jocelyn S. Hello. Anyone else who is here, sort of hiding in the wings? Feel free to jump on and say hello. It is currently Sunday here, and it is about 11:30 a.m. and it is cold. Now, I know I have no right to complain because it's Sydney cold. It's not like proper rest of the world cold, but it's cold for me. Cold. So, yeah. Okay. Right, going to be getting a floppy emu for my Mac Plus soon. That is awesome. I'll tell you what, the difference between a Mac Plus with and without a floppy emu is just a world of difference. I mean, a Mac Plus is a bit of fun. You put the floppy disks in and all that, but once you get that floppy emu, it just makes it a completely different computer, and fast too. My recommendation would be to probably stick with System 6.08 if you can. Let's go up to System 7 if you really want the System 7 features, but I'd be inclined to stay with System 6 on a Mac Plus. You'll run pretty zippy on that. Okay, hello to Scott N. Hello, Daniel Flakela, Eric Smith, REGZ0089. Bruce is cold because summer day for everyone else. I know, I'm not kidding myself. Hello, Dave. I am wearing a t-shirt. That is indicative of what I mean by cold. So I've got jeans on. Okay, I've had to put jeans on. I can't wear shorts. So that's the sort of cold I'm talking about. Yeah, it's, I don't know, what is it? It's 16 degrees Celsius outside. So come on, that's cold, surely. I mean, from 15 on downwards, the heater comes on. Come on. All right. So, yeah, I am a little bit on the chilly side. So yeah, the top temperature is supposed to get to, I think, about 18 or 19 degrees Celsius today. So, and it got down to a minimum overnight of, I think, about 6 degrees Celsius, and that is cold for me. I really don't like that at all. I'd stay in bed with her. Okay. So, let's just have a quick look here. We have, what is my thing says 26 viewers. I don't know if that is correct. So now is the opportunity for me to welcome everyone for watching and throw at them a promotion. Yes, this is a new thing for my live stream. PCB Way. I just need to mention PCB Way today for your PCB prototyping. They are the company that I use and I highly recommend them. Jump onto the PCB website. There is a link in the description. Here is a SCSI 2SD version 4.2. SCSI 2SD version 4.1 PowerBook Edition. Here is a blue SCSI. All of these boards I have had made up by PCB Way, just setting up the Gerber files. Couldn't be easier. They've got an online Gerber viewer, so you can actually upload your Gerbers and see what the finished PCB is going to look like. Their turnaround is incredibly quick. Their prices are fantastic. So PCB Way for your prototyping needs. Okay, so back across to me now. Now I did do a little bit of a clickbaity type title for this video, and what I said was recapping my least favourite Mac. Now, of course, the answer to what that is in the description, because it actually shows the recapping guide in there. But If you didn't read the description, or if you want a surprise, I'm about to change to the top view, and here it is, my least favourite recapping. This has nothing to do with it being my least favourite Mac. I actually have one of these. I like it. It has some issues. You know, I'm not denying that. But the reason why it's my least favourite, there are a few reasons. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 17 reasons why this is my least favourite Mac to recap. Because it has so many capacitors. And of course, I don't know if you can see this. If I just bring the light up so that it's shining in this corner here, you can see how it's not reflective in that area. And the reason why it's not, yeah, that was a good one there. Let me get that right there. The reason why it's not reflective is because it is covered in capacitor goo. And I am sick to death of seeing people post in Facebook saying, hey, I've got this Mac and there's no apparent capacitor leakage, but it still doesn't work. And then they post a picture and you see this smeary, dark, sort of kind of matte finish on the board there. And it's like, there is plenty of evidence of capacitor leakage. But it's just how it is, Some people just aren't, they don't know what to look for. I guess that's the main thing. So, okay, well, yes, so Jocelyn S, I can definitely relate to that. There is an issue with collecting big things. I have a Quadrant 950 in my collection, which is a Mac that I really like and have always wanted to have in my collection. And it's big. So, it's an awesome thing to have in the collection, but boy, I mean, it takes up so much space. And same with a lot of those big all-in-ones, if you're talking about having to store, G3 iMacs or some of those like big LC 580 or 575 or G3 all-in-one, they're just they just take up so much space. They're a real pain. I mean, what about the old workgroup server? Was it AW? That's the one, isn't it? The workgroup server, that great big square block one. That thing's huge. Turned into a coffee table. Right. So, the website you get the floppy emu is a safe website, correct? So the website you get the floppy emu is a safe website, correct? If you're talking about big mess of wires, I have purchased from there before, and I have never had any issue. Another thing the Big Mess of Wires sell, or BMOW, for those who don't realise the link, BMOW, Big Mess of Wires, they make floppy emu. Another thing they make is, of course, the Rominator 2, which I don't have here. I have to buy another one because one of my customers has said, oh, can I have yours, please? And I was like, yeah, okay. You have to pay for a replacement, though. And so, yeah. Apple Network Server, there we go, 500 and 700. They are a machine and a half. Of course, another thing, of course, what about the old Xserve with an Xserve RAID? Those things are massive as well, and heavy. Okay, alright, okay. Right, so as I mentioned before, I don't have a whole lot of time today, so I'm going to probably just get cracking and start recapping this guy here. These ones here are very, very prone to capacitor leakage, so they do need to be recapped. If you have an LC2 and it hasn't been recapped, I highly recommend getting it done. What else? This here. This is another thing I'm going to be doing for this customer. I asked them if they wanted it, and they said, yes, please. And that is, I'm going to be placing a socket on this location for a floating point unit. If anyone's not sure what a floating point unit is, FPU or math coprocessor, and it's a CPU, a chip, an IC, specifically dedicated to processing floating numbers. Floating numbers are big numbers with like decimal places and stuff like that. And the FPU is specifically designed for, calculating those numbers very, very quickly. Now, even though this board was made to have a socket here for an FPU, Apple decided not to put the socket there because this is LC, low cost, low end. They don't want these things to be competing with the more expensive models. And so they basically just said, you know what? Even though we designed this thing so it can take an FPU, stuff them. We're not going to give them a socket to even put one in if they want to. But, you know, me being me, I'm going to get a socket, and I'm going to stick it on there, and I'm going to stick an FPU in there, and the person whose computer this is can enjoy all of the wonders of a floating point unit on their LC2. And if you do a bench test on it, you will see a difference. I don't know if you see much of a difference in day-to-day stuff, but I wonder if it performs any better with the FPU installed in it. I can tell you it gets better benchmark results. I can tell you that much. So if you run speedometer on it, you will get better benchmark results. But if you were to put that into day-to-day stuff, you know, whatever you might be doing on this, I don't know. I don't know that you would actually feel it. I don't know you would feel, oh, wow, this thing's got more vavoom. Now, one of the ways you can tell that this is an LC board is, of course, it has this notch here, one of the old pizza box LCs. So whether you be looking at an LC1, an LC2, an LC3, or an LC475, or a Quadra 605 for that matter, they all have this little notch here. That's basically how they fit into the board. They slot in, they clip in, they're held in place by little plastic tabs on either side here. To remove them, you bend those plastic tabs back and you slide it out. If you have anything newer than an LC2, when you bend those tabs, they snap off. So, but the old LC2 is made of the old-fashioned plastics, and they're still pretty good. So the LC2's not too bad with that. Actually, I'm not even sure about the LC3. I don't get enough LC3s to really judge how bad the plastics are on that. But certainly on a LC475 or a Quadra 605, all you have to do is look at the plastics and they snap. So we've got to get all of these caps off, and there are a lot of them, and for that I will probably whip over to the microscope and we'll have a look there. As usual, I will be using my special patented heat shields. They're not patented at all, that's nonsense. These are basically just blades from those little clippy slidey blades that you use for cutting boxes, and these used to be a shiny metal colour, but now they've gone all sort of tarnished and whatnot, so that's what they look like now. But what's great about these is they can be snapped into different lengths nice and easily, because that's how these blades are designed. And then I use these springs, little springs like this, and I just put that there. Now if you're a regular viewer, you will have heard this all before, but just for the benefit of anyone who might be watching for the first time, these are what I use to try and protect the rest of the board from heat. Now, why would I be trying to protect the board from heat? Well, because of a couple of reasons. First of all, there's plastic. We've got these guys here. These are the little headphone and microphone sockets, and they're plastic. There's plastic underneath this little choke here. There's plastic in this, what is that? Is that the ADB? Whoops, that's the ADB port. There's plastic in that. There's plastic here. There's plastic in these sockets, and so I need to protect that plastic so it doesn't melt when I hit it with a hot air station. But I also try and protect some of the other components on these boards, and the reason for that is that as they get really old, the solder gets a bit of a crust on the outside. When you hit it with heat, that crust on the outside stays solid, but the solder underneath melts, and it starts pushing little solder balls through that sort of crusty out exterior, and the next thing you know, you end up with solder balls all over the board. So that's just a preventative measure with that to try and minimize that. This will go into an ultrasonic cleaner. It will get a lot of those solder balls washed off, but solder balls can often be the cause of failure on the computer. If they get jammed into the wrong place, you end up creating a bridge between two pins, and all of a sudden that thing's not going to work anymore. So be aware of the balls. Look out for the balls. Right, okay. That's enough double entendres for today. That's nonsense. There's plenty more room for double entendres. Okay. Right. So, I am going to try and protect this serial number because I just, some people like to have nice visible serial numbers. So, I'm using some Captain tape here, which is heat-resistant tape, and I am using that to just hold down my heat shield, and then I'll get another heat shield and put that here as I try and get these two caps off without melting anything. Now, on this particular board, I reckon some solder tweezers would probably be quite good, but I don't have any, so. Solder tweezers are basically just like a soldering iron, but they're tweezers with soldering hot ends on both bits of the tweezer. And they're quite good if you're wanting to get components like this off. You can just heat both sides and lift them up. But I don't have one, so I don't. It's as simple as that. Right, let's get these ones off first. Let's jump across to the microscope view because we like that. Okie dokie, and it looks like we've even got the right. Oh, the colour is good today, so that's a good thing. Let's see if we can get it in focus now. Go. Okay. Oh wow, I'm massively out of focus now, so I've got to get myself in tune with you guys. Well, that looks good. Righty. Right, so yeah, I mean, look at all this. Look at all this. Look at it. It still looks a little bit out of focus to me. Let me. That's a bit better. I mean, look how. I mean, look. I'm gonna just get a cotton bud Q-tip thingy here. I'm just going to do a bit of that. And look at it. Look at it. Look at that gunge. Look at that gunge. Well, let's see if we can get this guy off. And let's see if we're going to have some popping ones. And we also need to look out and see what the state of all these traces are underneath. Hey, off she comes. Oi. Careful. Steady on. Oh, man. Oh, man. Oh, man, that smells. Oopsie. A little bit of meltage. See the meltage? We do not like that. But we have ways of dealing with that. And that's where I get my little scalpel here like this. And I go chopperoony. And chopperoony. And then at the end you won't actually see it. So I can say that with confidence because we're looking at it through a microscope at the moment. If we stop looking at it through a microscope, you won't see any meltage. There we go. Okay. LCPSU, all the part numbers I'm looking for have had glue put on them. What a pain to get the part number. Ah, yes, well. Whereas I like to call it snot. They put snot on those things. Stop them from vibrating, I think, is the main purpose. Right, so here we've got our, well, that's probably the headphone socket. Might be the microphone socket. I think it's the headphone socket. Oh, I can't be certain. And let's see if we can get this little cluster off here. I'm going to try and get this group of 4, 5, 6, 7 off, all in one go. Because as this board gets warm, I should be able to get the rest of them off as well. And I'll just try and do it without knocking anything else off. Ouch, just hit my nose. I had an interesting situation recently where someone was sort of saying, oh, what's better to use? Is it better to use tantalums or is it better to use polymers? I guess at the end of the day, your polymers are probably a better quality cap. But there are a few problems associated with the polymers, and they are, number one, they are quite expensive, but the other is I haven't been able to find replacement polymers for all of these sizes. Because what you have to remember is on modern equipment, they tend not to use these sorts of surface mount electrolytics for these sizes anymore. Well, for all of these sizes anyway. This little chip here, it says 341S0851 is a CUDA chip. And you'll find that same chip on quite a few of the LC range. It is often, when that chip fails, it often means the computer will not start up at all. Hello, Endless Infinity, and hello, Michael Kirshner. And who's that? Olid Lavoy? Something like that? I can realize something here, recap my LC2, and right after it worked perfectly, but the next day there was no sound again. I cleaned it with my ultrasonic cleaner, still nothing. Well, look, there are a lot of potential causes, and it's actually one of the most common things I get asked. Now, I have an issue at the moment. Basically, let's refer to it as a correspondence problem. If I were to actually respond to every single request that comes through, either via email, Facebook Messenger, online forum. What else is there? Discord. I don't know. There's several. If I was to respond to every single request that I get, I would basically do nothing but respond to requests. That would end up being my full-time job. I quite literally get that many questions. But that is probably the most common question I get. And that is, hey, I've recapped this so-and-so, and it's still not working. What do I do next? And ultimately, that is what gobbles up most of my time. And what I mean by that is not answering those questions. I mean when the same thing happens to me. So that is what eats up most of my time. And the reason for that is there isn't necessarily a simple answer to that. It usually then comes down to having to do sort of a series of diagnostics and trying to isolate the problem. However, when it comes to a sound, first thing, when you've got a sound-based issue, any sound-based issue, if you've got no sound on the thing, the first thing you need to do is connect headphones and see if you're getting sound through headphones. So if you are getting sound through headphones but you're not getting through the speaker, it's probably going to be related to what do you want? It's probably going to be related to the amplifier chip or something else, or a problem with the trace going to the amplifier chip. When it comes to if you're getting no sound from either, there is. Sorry, I'm just going to do this. I have to stop talking for a moment, because if I keep talking, I won't do things, and I have trouble concentrating and talking and doing things at the same time. I am not a good multitasker. Actually, that's not true. I'm great at multitasking. But what ends up happening is everything that I'm doing during that multitasking phase is done badly, or not done, or sort of done incorrectly. So yeah, no multitasking for me. I just like to focus on one thing at a time. When I get a situation where I've got no sound, or a problem happening after recapping, the very first thing I have to do is check my recapping. Now, with this computer that you've got, did you recap with tantalums, or did you recap with electrolytics or polymers? So that's a very important question, because that does often have a bearing. Whoopsie. Okay. Let's whip off these last two capacitors. One and two. Okay, first I did electrolytics, then a few months later went to tantalums, nothing in the headphones either. Okay, no worries. So, there are a few things it could be. It could actually be a faulty sound chip. It was LC2 you said, wasn't it? LC2, yeah. So, this is the sound chip here. Little square one up in the top corner. And it could be a problem with that. What it could also be is damage to one of the traces leading from this. I think that's the amplifier chip there, actually. I could be wrong, but or is it that one? Anyhow, yeah, so it could be trace damage to any of those places. What it can also be, something that I will be watching out for during this, and I'll demonstrate it to you as we go. It can be an accidental short created during the recapping process, and I'll show you how that happens, and I'll show you how to avoid it and potentially have to look at it. But really, the very first thing I do if I ever have a recapping job that doesn't work out is I have to check my recapping very carefully. Oh my goodness, look at the size of the tip on this. You can tell I've been doing through-hole soldering, can't you? Let me get rid of this thing, this thing, and get a more sensible sized tip. Using my, this is the tip that I like to use. It's the T12B, God, what does that say? B something 2. It's in the description, so it's been scraped off, because this is a very well used tip. Very well used. Definitely time to It'll be time to replace this fairly soon. Always keep a spare. BC2, there it is. I always keep a spare tip because I go through these a lot. In we go. There we go. All right, let's have a look here. Okay, cool. Is it a BC? Okay, it is a BC2. The big one was a BC. The great big fat one was a BC. Careful, don't want to burn myself. It was a BC. It was a C4 actually. So there you go, C4 for the great big one. And I used that humongous one. Well, actually, I'm probably going to use that humongous one today. I'm going to use it for getting the solder out of these holes because it's really good at getting heat where you want it. But you just have to be careful you don't burn stuff with it because it's so monstrously large. So I'm going to stick some flux down on these because the next thing we need to do is clean all this up. Right at this particular moment, it is not ready for new caps to go on. Far from it. If I were to try and stick new caps on it now, it would end up looking awful. And this is actually one of the mistakes that I see. I saw someone selling a board. I can't even remember what. Now, I was selling it as recaps. Oh, buy this board. It's recaps. So it's worth 3 times as much. And the recapping job was terrible. And just at a glance, I could tell the main problem they had is they had not cleaned and prepped the surface properly for putting the new components on. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use some fresh solder, some flux and some heat, and a very, very gentle rubbing motion and get a load of solder smoke, or not solder smoke, it's flux smoke in my face. So let's get the fume extractor doing its job. So there we go, we got those. Look at that. And basically what we want to do is we want to just keep cleaning these until we end up with the solder adhering to the full surface of the pad. So if I just try and put solder on this now, actually that one worked quite well, but that's mainly because I've got so much heat in my iron at the moment. It's basically just pushing all the gunk away. As bad as these look, they're actually not that bad. They're not as bad as, say, like an old SE30. They get really crusty when they get old, but you know, LC2, a little bit newer, not as bad. So just going around one at a time, making sure all these pads look like they're ready for new solder. And then of course we have to lift all this solder off as well, because I want to, when I put the new cap down, I want it to be clean and clear. So fresh and so clean. See the little solder ball that I just had on there? So you can see the little solder balls coming up here, the ones that I was talking about before. Solder ball, solder ball, solder ball. And we just don't want them wreaking havoc. I was mentioning before about the CUDA chip, that one there. So that's, if you've got a situation where a computer is just completely dead, won't switch on at all, it can sometimes be that guy. Not always, but sometimes. Oh, and if you've got keyboard issues, that chip as well, probably. Alright, how about we get some of this solder off now? I've put my new fresh stuff on there. And now I'm going to lift it away and just leave some lovely shiny tinned pads. Joe, welcome to the live stream. How are you today? I do hope you are well. So cleaning off the new solder there, just to leave some lovely nice tinned pads. Do-do-do. Okay, how are we doing here? We've got 47 people here at the moment by my count. So hello to everyone. Anyone who might have missed the beginning, so this is indeed my least favourite Mac to recap. It's not actually true. There are newer ones that I have to recap that are way worse. But in terms of this sort of vintage, probably the second revision Classic 2 and the LC2 are probably two of my least favourites. And it's just because they have so many caps and they're all clustered together, and it's just a bit of a pain, you know. But I've got to keep these things going. Got to keep them all protected. Keep them so they're going to run for another 30 years, and until the next thing happens to them, whatever that might be. You know, we're replacing the capacitors in these things. We are replacing the hard drives with solid state replacements. We've got all these wonderful ways of keeping them going. And then, of course, to these rather amazing people out there, people like Kai Robinson, I think is his name, who has done things like this and completely recreate a Macintosh SE board from scratch. Reverse engineered, brand spanking new SE board. This will be in an upcoming stream. I will be starting to build this. It won't be all in one stream for obvious reasons, but I will start work on getting this happening. I've got to go out and buy myself a whole ton of resistors and capacitors though, and diodes for that matter. I do have the bill of materials for this, and I do have a lot of these components. I don't have all of these components, but I have a lot of them. Yeah, I'll be looking to completely and totally recreate an SE, not an SE, did I say SE30? If I did, it was a mistake. SE from scratch. No matter what I do, solder fills up the holes when I remove the components. Annoying. Yep, it is. And that's actually, I was saying before, you know, one of the most common questions I get is I've just recapped my whatever it is and it still doesn't work. The second most common question I get is, how do you get solder out of the holes? And of course, what I often do, you know, there are times when I'm doing my live streams, or even if I'm doing some of my pre-recorded videos, and I go in and I suck the solder out of a hole, and then people are like, oh my goodness, that was so easy. How come that was so easy? Why was that so easy? And well, the answer is it's a bit of luck. I have had times where it's taken me absolutely ages to get stuff out of the holes, but I don't necessarily show you that one. I'll show you the one where it came out really easily. But when you are trying to get solder out of the hole, this is the tip that I have for you. First of all, this is the tip that I have for you. See, hey, look at that, play on words. This one here, great big fat one with a flat edge like that. It's got solder all over it at the moment, I realise that, but that is basically a great big flat bevel there. That allows me to go push it right down flat on the board and get me a huge amount of heat flat onto the board. And I'll just demonstrate that quickly for you now. Yes, I will. Worth trying to get going, do you think? I would say that's a big yes for an LC. I found an LC in e-waste 2 days ago. Is it worth trying to get it going, do you think? I would say, look, depending on the state of the thing, obviously if it has an absolutely destroyed board from battery corrosion or something like that, you have to kind of assess it based on what you have there. But if we're just talking about your standard LC that's still in reasonable condition, perhaps a little bit of capacitor leakage, then I would say 100% yes. I mean, I don't even have an LC. I've got an LC2 and an LC475. I really want an LC and an LC3, but they're all so expensive these days. Is that the tip that's not tinned on the side? This one, this whole end bit should be tinned, but it just doesn't look that way at the moment. But there we go. I've cleaned it up a little bit there. You can see it sort of. Well, you can't really see it well at all, but it is tinned. It is tinned. Trust me. So I'm going to suck some solder out of some of these holes here, and so I've got my great big iron tip here. I've got a huge amount of heat coming out of it at the moment. I am sitting on about 430 degrees Celsius, which is insanely hot, I know, but this is, you know, you have your heat for the job that you've got, and then you get yourself some solder wick like this here, and then I will generally just apply heat and that huge amount of heat, and then out she comes. As you can see, I'm going to go through a lot of solder wick for this because it's sucking it up in a big way. But yeah, but that's basically it. Huge amount of heat, needs a flux. When you get really stuck, if you end up in a situation where the solder is getting really stubborn and you're having trouble getting it out, my suggestion is always to add some new solder, add some fresh solder, like that. Make sure there's a nice amount of new solder on there, and then do it again. Get the old, get the wick. The fresh solder does help, and we'll get the wick there, and we'll, up she comes. But definitely the high amount of heat is the most important part. And of course the other thing is, this is a really interesting thing, solder loves hanging out with other solder. Really likes to be, close to other solder. So sometimes if you start off with a little bit of solder on that wick, so just put a little bit of solder on the tip there so that it's actually got a little bit of solder saturation in there, then put it on, and then it just draws that other solder out. So just NK Morpheus, hello. What do we got here? I opened it up, looks very clean. Michael's Workshop, hello. It just don't have a monitor to connect to it. Yes, okay, and that's another thing you have to remember is the LC is one of the old sync on green computers. You need a special sort of adapter for that. I have one here. This is the DB15, I think it's called, to VGA on the other side. This one has 2 rows of switches on it. Don't ask me where to buy these, because I haven't been able to find them anywhere. I am planning, although it hasn't happened yet, I am planning on making hardwired adapters for the LC, 2SI, 2CI that all use that old sync on green output. Because when it comes to buying these adapters, like I bought an adapter online that was, like, oh, Mac adapter, sort of thing, and it doesn't work with a 2CI, an LC, or an SI. They have since changed the description for their product, which is nice. They obviously have acknowledged the fact that it doesn't work, but yeah, just saying. Should I still save the FDH? Hard to find. Yes, I would say that too. Okay, Mac FDHD was next to the LC, but the screen I could see very bad burning. Looks like a menu screen. You could, yeah. I would agree with Mike on that one. You can still save them. And the other thing you have to remember, because this has got to be the third most asked question about these compact Macs. I'm really talking about all of these commonly asked questions, and that is, can I swap CRTs on these Macs? And the answer is, all of those old, what were they, 9-inch CRT? 9-inch? CRT Macs, compact Macs, so we're talking about the original Macintosh 128K, 512K, 512KE, Mac Plus, Mac Classic, Classic 2, SE, SEFDHD, SE30. All of those use the same tube, the same CRT. They sometimes have a variation on the yoke. That's that coily thing on the back. But they are actually attached onto that CRT with little screws. You can undo the screws. It's got a little cuff on it, and you undo the screw to loosen that cuff, and you can slide the yoke off. So you can swap yokes over, and you can actually swap the CRT. Now, it's a bit tricky, because when you put that new yoke on, if you put the yoke too far one way, you'll end up with the screen being too big. If you pull the yoke too far back, it'll be too small, or vice versa, one of those. If the yoke is on sideways, your image will be sideways. So there are adjustments that need to be made, and there are adjustments that need to be made while the computer is on. And of course, we're talking about pretty dangerous voltages here. But, thing to keep in mind, if you've got a case for a computer, you've got all the guts of a computer, and it's all working, and you've got burn-in, don't freak out, because there have got to be thousands of Macintosh classics out there that have been destroyed by the battery, but the CRT is still in mint condition. You just got to dig up one of those. You've got to get onto the forums. Has anyone got a case, or an old CRT from a battery destroyed computer? Get that CRT, swap it over, and away you go. So, Yes, couldn't find a CRT with a reasonable price tag. Yeah, I guess so. This is where I would be on the lookout for, sort of when an opportunity might arise for, I would say a classic or a classic 2 in particular. They're probably the ones that are most susceptible to the battery explosions, and they can explode so badly that they just destroy most of the computer, but the CRT will still be intact. So just keep an eye out. Thank you for the desoldering tip. Hopefully it'll be a big help when I get working on the board tomorrow. I do hope it helps. Stick together when there's a little solder on the component. Solder sucker barely works when there's a fair amount that sucks right. Yeah. I have 3 different methods of removing solder. One is using a big manual mechanical solder sucker like this. This is Gut brand, the same brand that make my solder wick. Gutwick. I had someone send me a message the other day saying, "Oh, we have found a spelling mistake on your website. This can be bad for your credibility. Let us know and we can help you." And it's like they said I'd misspelt Gut. And it's like, well, it's a brand name, it's Gut. I haven't misspelt it. So yeah, I use these for sucking out solder, and then I've also got one of these ones that's sort of motorized like that. But generally when it comes to pulling the solder out of holes like this, I'm generally just most likely to use wick and flux. So, and heat, of course, from the soldering iron. Alright, let's continue. I've got 3 more pads to clean up here, and then we'll be ready to put new capacitors on, and then we can hopefully go in and test this one. Let's get some more of this flux here. I use Amtech flux, which I'm very fond of because it is a very good quality flux. And if you're wondering what makes a good quality flux, it's resistance to high temperature. So in other words, it doesn't burn away when it gets very hot, so that you don't have to keep reapplying and reapplying. That's one thing. The other is that it doesn't smell too bad. And the other is that it doesn't leave huge amounts of gunky residue behind. Now, although this is actually sold as a no clean flux, which means that you can theoretically leave it on the board, I would not. What they mean by that is it's not actually going to cause corrosion like some of the active fluxes that are out there that can actually end up corroding components. It's not going to do that, but you can still trap moisture behind it, and you can under it, and you can still get corrosion from it. So wash it off. Even though it says no clean, wash it off. Right, let's get the old or the new solder off this now. I've still got my Gigantor tip here. I will change that in a moment back to the normal one. Now, does anyone know about the contentious issue with, I think it's C4? It's either C3 or C4, I can't remember which one. This is a little test for the Mac gurus out there. Does anyone know what the contentious issue with, I think it's C4, is on this Mac? You can even put the 9-inch green monochrome in a classic Mac. I've seen people do that. It looks so cool. I'm not sure I'd want to do it, but it does look awful cool seeing them with the green screen. There's a lot of fakes out there. Oh well, I buy my Goodwick from an actual walk-in store sort of thing. So, and I know they're not carrying fakes. So, it's actually it's one of the ways I get my exercise, walking to this store, because it's about, I don't know, it's about 2 kilometres away from me, something like that. No, 1.5 kilometres. About 1.5 kilometres. So yeah, it's about a 3 kilometre round trip for me to walk there. And so when I need something from there, it's like, oh, I need a walk today. So grab a backpack, go for a walk, buy some Goodwick. What else do I usually buy from there? I buy some 3D filament, 3D printing filament. I'm just cleaning off a lot of that black gunk from here. You can't really see it. I should probably change to this view here for this top view. Good Lord. It's nice. Isn't no clean flux meant to be evaporated off in an oven? It probably is. I've never tried because I don't have one. I don't use one. It could well just evaporate away. I have to try that one day, won't I? Stick this stuff in an oven. Because incidentally, just so that you know, one of the main ways that they build components, builds boards, is they use a stencil. So they basically start off with a board, and then they have a stencil which puts a coating of solder paste on all of the pads. So all of the pads end up having solder paste on them, just on the pads. Then the component gets put in place by a machine, like a pick and place machine, which goes in a little robot that goes and grabs a component and plonks it down. And then they bake the board, and that solder paste melts. The solder paste is just tiny, weeny little beads of solder mixed with flux. And then they bake the board, that melts, and then all of the components get stuck to the board. It's very, very convenient, but for me, it takes all the fun out of it. So, you know, doing stuff with a stencil is like, no, I want to solder it with a soldering iron, thank you. But of course, that's a different story if you're having to manufacture large quantities of things. For example, when I am making one of these SCSI 2SD 4.2s, when I'm building one of these by hand, it takes me around about an hour to put this together. So that's probably the most complicated component there, which is the actual PSOC, or programmable system on a chip. And then we've got these little hex inverters here. I think that's what they are. A couple of diodes, and then we've got a few tiny, weeny little capacitors and stuff there. And putting the whole thing together, as I say, I've got it down to probably about an hour, maybe a tiny little bit less. On the other hand, this is the blue SCSI, and I can do 4 of these in an hour. So, let's have a look here after I've given this a bit of a wipe, and we'll just see if there's anything here we need to tidy up. So, let's go to, whoopsie, that's a blank screen. There we go. Alright. Oh, and another really interesting thing about this flux that I use, this is the Amtech flux here. Let's just jump back to this top view. I'll see if I can demonstrate it here, if I can get this thing working. Are you going to work for me today? Or are you going to be at... Oh, yep, he's working. That's good. Yep, cool. Alright, so, one of the things about this Amtech flux, is that it is specifically designed to be visible under UV light. And you notice you can really see it when you take this stuff out in the sun. It kind of glows in the sun. And it's meant to be visible under UV light so that you can observe if there's any still left on the board. But if I get some UV light here, which I have, and put this under it, I don't know if you can see it. It's very noticeable to me here. My shirt's glowing as well. But I'm just not sure how well you can see it. Can you just... Yeah, you can probably just see it glowing there. So it really glows under this UV light. If I put some on my finger here. See that? So you can see that little bit of flux there glowing on my finger, and then if I turn this off, like, off it goes. So yeah, it's kind of handy because if I put this stuff in the ultrasonic cleaner, and I take the board out of the ultrasonic cleaner, I hold it under a UV light. If I still see that glowing, then I know I haven't got it all off. Yes, it's exactly. Is my board clean check? That's exactly true. Right, here we go. There are lots of different types of flux. I like the Amtech flux. It costs me a little bit more. No one sells it here in Australia, so I have to buy this from overseas. This is the NC559V2TF. I really like this. They make another sort which is designed to be used with lead-free solder, but I definitely prefer this one. I have used the other one, but I prefer this one. The other one, if I remember rightly, it was a lot more opaque. than this stuff, and so when I was putting it on there, I couldn't actually see under it, whereas this stuff I can kind of see under it, which just makes life a lot easier. Hey, get out of here, critter. 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 Be gone. Right. Okay, so let's go back to the microscope here. Let's have a look at the board. Let's see if we can see anything wrong. Here is a Y1. And Y1 is a crystal oscillator. And that one will be, what is it, 32.764746, 32 point, 32 point something. I think that's the one. Which is that's the crystal oscillator that keeps time, or is involved in keeping time with the RTC, or real-time clock. So it's always good to have a few of these on hand, because those little oscillators are often found near the battery holders on a lot of the computers, not on this one, but on a lot of computers they're found near the battery holders. And they can therefore sometimes get corroded by battery leakage. So these are often one of the first things that fall off an old board, like an SE30 or something like that. So good idea to keep a few of those spare. And it's a very, very common frequency crystal oscillator, because pretty much every real-time clock uses the same one, 32.768 kilohertz, or 32,768. I will memorize that number one day. One day it will be locked in here like a steel trap. Oh, Jay has just popped his head up and has plugged the channel. Thank you very much for that. Recap a Mac. This is where I get my guys from. So they're recapping guides that you will find there for a lot of the computers that I work on. Well, every computer I have ever worked on. The only one that's not up there, actually there's probably a couple, I haven't got up there yet, and I apologise for this, is the LC3. For some reason, I haven't got around to putting that up on the website yet. So, okay. Remember to smash that like button. That thing's just getting out of control, that smash my like button. Sorry to everyone who might have been wanting to watch Mac Yak this week. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it because of work commitments, and then everyone else had sort of various commitments as well, and so the show ended up not happening. But we did get a live stream from Steve, Mac84 Steve, who is unfortunately not with us tonight because he's off doing other things, which he's allowed to do. You know, I mean, I'll give him grief about it later on, but at the end of the day, he's allowed to have a life. Right, just going to do a little bit of scrapey here because it just looks a little bit yucky. Oh, I'll tell you what, it's yucky. I think this blade it needs a bit of clean at the very least. Hang on. Divided by 2 a bunch of times and you get exactly 1/2. So 2 and 2 are 4, 4 and 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024, 2048. I can't be bothered going any further. I'll just take your word for it. Just checking to see if this scalpel is still usable. Okay, so I was mentioning before some of the problems that can occur when you're recapping these, in particular if you're recapping with tantalums, replacing electrolytics with tantalums. And I do talk about this quite a bit. Basically the problem we have is that these pads are the width of a pin, or a little bit bigger than the width of a pin on a surface mount electrolytic, which the pin is like that, or lead, or whatever you want to call it, the little bit that sticks it to the board. As you can see, it's quite narrow. But when we have a tantalum capacitor, that pin is quite wide. I'm going to just grab one here today. I've got a very nice one here for you today. It's a good quality, yes. There we go. So here you can see the pin is quite wide, like that. And it is wider than the pad that it's going to sit on. And so that means it hangs over the edge. So I'm just going to give you a scenario here. Imagine on this one here, imagine we got a little bit of this scraped away, like that. And then we go and we plonk this capacitor down onto that spot. We solder him on. Oops. I need a pair of tweezers. That pin is hanging over the edge and it ends up making contact with that exposed trace. That can be the cause of a short circuit when you're doing recapping, and that is something that I always recommend people look out for. It's very, very easy to happen, especially if you've ended up with a board with a fair bit of leakage, and you can end up with these traces ending up looking a little bit on the ugly side, and some of that UV mask can get scraped away, or it can get corroded away, whatever the case is there, and next thing you know, you plonk your replacement tantalum capacitor down and you create a short. And so that is probably one of the things that I would recommend everyone be most careful of when they're doing recapping on these things. And then of course the other thing, the really important thing, is to check out for damaged traces or gunk around the sound chip if you're having issues with sound. I mean, I had a Mac that a Macintosh SE30 that someone sent to me. Now, I can't remember who it was in the chat mentioned that they had already ultrasonically cleaned it, but I just sort of mentioned that I had someone send an SE30 to me that they had cleaned and cleaned and cleaned with isopropyl alcohol and a toothbrush, and they still couldn't get it to work. Put it in the ultrasonic cleaner, bing, she worked. So, you know, it's the way to get all those things out of all the nooks and crannies. But anyhow, the short answer is what I just mentioned, which wasn't short at all. But the long answer to why my computer doesn't work after recapping is that you will probably need to go in and do some diagnostics, go in and get your multimeter out, check and make sure that everything is going where it's supposed to be going. Like if you've got no sound, here's your sound chip. Go and check to make sure that when you use your multimeter that you're getting, you know, like from here to here or from here to here. You know, you've got to follow these traces around and make sure that everything is going where it's meant to go, that you've got that continuity there. There's no real one easy answer for that. It's basically, we're just dealing with diagnostics here. Just tinning this exposed stuff, the stuff that I've exposed. Don't like the look of that one. There we go, that's better. Get me something in my nose again. Hello, Retro Techie. Thank you for joining. Oh, Dana Siberia's here. Hello, hello, hello. Just saw your latest one, Dana, which was the what is it? The tape drives, tape 600, whatever it was called. I can't remember. Another cute one there. For those who aren't aware of Dana's work, Dana, please feel free to drop a link in there to your rather amazing back catalogue of spectacular vintage Macs that never were. Oh, and modern Macs as well, for that matter. Okay, where are we? I am still using this obscenely large soldering tip. And I think it's time for me to change it. Yep. There we go. 2 newies in the last day. Oh, geez, I only saw one of them. I have to go back and have a look. Check for solder balls. Yeah, That's another thing. Do check for solder balls. Actually, that's another really good point. I forgot to mention. This is something that's so important to check for if you've recapped and a computer's not working. It's something that I check for all the time because it happens with alarming regularity. Here's the board. Let's go to top view. Yes, exactly what Jay said. Check for solder balls. Triggered, triggered, triggered. Here's the board. Flip it over and check to see you haven't knocked... Oh, let's get rid of that. Away with you. Make sure you haven't knocked off one of these components from the bottom. I see it all the time. I have people that send me boards and they go, you know, they've either had to go at recapping them or whatever the case, and it still doesn't work. And I get these and I flip them over and I find caps or resistors that have been knocked off the back. And I put them back on and they work again. So that's another really important thing to check for. And that. Right. So, we're going to have to clean this up again, because I want to put a little bit of UV solder mask on some of these. Get my little laser beam out. Pew pew! I should actually, at this particular moment in time, just remind everyone about the wonderful folks at PCBWay. If you are not aware of PCBWay, you should be. In particular, if you are interested in doing printed circuit board prototyping. And to be honest, you don't even need to be doing prototyping. You can just be getting printouts of other people's stuff, like I do. All I do is I just print out other people's printed circuit boards using PCBWay. I get these, there's a SCSI 2SD version 4.2, there's a board that I got them to make, and it is in absolutely top quality. It's really well made, good quality stuff, and I've made a lot of these, and I can tell you, I haven't had a dud yet. And so I highly recommend PCBWay if you're wanting to get printed circuit boards done. They've got an online Gerber viewer. There are also some amazing projects there. If you get on there and have a look at some of the projects where people have submitted their own sort of board prototypes that you can then go in and get ordered, so you can go in and make kind of your own kits and things like that. Fantastic stuff. So, link in the description, PCBWay. Keep them in mind. And then we jump across to the microscope. Just reading. Alright, I gotta step it up here. Alright, let's get a tissue. When I go and stick the UV solder mask down, I have to stick it down on a clean surface, so this is why I am spending all this time now getting this gunk off. Uh-oh, what's that? Why is that pink? Oh well. So, let's have a look here and see where we're going to apply some UV solder mask. Fine there. I might just do a little bit on this one. So let's get some UV solder mask. Charles, hello. Okay. Just need to check something for a second. Might be a tick. RetroTech, I think they sponsor about 75% of the channels I watch now. Yes, you're probably right. That one there. And by they, you mean PCBWay. Wow, that's interesting that you say that. I have found everything that I have got done from PCBWay to be insanely inexpensive, so I've certainly had no reason to actually shop around. So 11 inches by 5 inches, that doesn't seem that big, but anyhow, Okay, what am I looking for? I'm looking for... So, Charles, guess what? This is your board. How about that? This is your LC2 that I'm currently working on. Now, I didn't test it, but did this LC2 work beforehand? Just be curious to know. Should cover this one, seeing as this is what I was actually demonstrating for. So just to give you an idea of price of these PCBs that I was showing you before, I got 10 SCSI to SD version 4.2 boards made up, 10 of them made up for $5 US. And guess what? On my first order, I had a $5 voucher that I could use. So it only cost me delivery to get those boards sent out here to Australia. And they basically got them made and delivered in 1 week. So I have to tell you, that I found rather impressive to be able to get 10 boards, 10 SCSI to SD boards, blank boards made up, for $5 US. So anyhow, that's my experience. Right, let's clean this one up. Just looking at the sunlight out there, I wonder if it'd be easier for me to head out there with a magnifying glass. I sometimes head out with a magnifying glass and use the sun to actually dry this stuff. It does it so fast. Because the sun is a pretty big old UV lamp. Yeah, maybe it's you, Joe. Maybe they don't like you. I don't know. I'm not sure. Curious. Was there anything weird or spectacular about the boards you were getting done? How many were you getting done up, just out of curiosity? Okay. Just reading all this stuff here. Gave a crackly chime once and no more. Well, okay, so hopefully this will mean that we can get it to work this time. Yes, indeedy. Just got to dry off all this UV mask before I plonk down the new caps. Oh, I asked that question before. I don't know if anyone answered about what was the... I missed it. Someone may well have answered it. What was the contentious issue associated with, I think it's either C3 or C4 on this board? Did anyone answer? Because if they answered, I missed it. Got sort of carried away. No one's going to argue with that, Joe. We know your 4 times is awesome. C4, it is a dangerous explosive. Dana. Dana wins the Christmas turkey. it's backwards, and that's interesting. That is the contentious issue. Now, I am not one of the people that believes it is backwards, but there are a lot of people that believe that that capacitor is backwards. That Apple actually put the capacitor on backwards. So, that is the contentious issue. And there's lots of discussion on it. If you ever happen to get onto 68K MLA, you will find lots of discussion about it. Hoips. Dry. Oh, hello, Max. Thought it could be mine already. You're dreaming, Max. You're dreaming. The backlog of recapping at the moment is ridiculous. I've actually got another LC to do before I get started on yours as well. But it's on the bright side. There is one good thing, and that is that I am starting to get through these a little bit faster. The downside is that people keep sending them to me faster as well. There is something going to happen fairly soon. It's not going to happen with any of the boards that I have here now, but there is going to be a bum price increase for recapping. It's kind of inevitable. I'm just not able to keep up with the quantity of recapping that's coming through the door at the moment. And so I really have no choice really but to put the price up. I'm sure it will upset some folks, but what can I do? Are there any Macs you have not yet recapped and want to? I've never done a 2X, a Macintosh 2X. I'd like to do that one just so that I have a photo of it on the guide, you know, on my my Recapper Mac website. I'd really like to have a 2X there. What else? I think apart from that, I don't think there's anything else that I can think of just off the top of my head. I've recapped so much stuff. You know, there are obviously a lot more Macs out there, but they're the newer ones, and they probably don't need recapping as much as the older ones. When it comes to the older ones that really need the recapping, I kind of like working on SE30s these days. Number one, because they're not, there's not too many caps on there, and the other is that there are very few I haven't been able to fix. Now, of course, I'm about to be challenged on that one, thanks to Joe, because there's a board on its way across the oceans at the moment, which I'll be working on, which is going to really, it's going to test my resolve, that's for sure. Yeah, fixed all my evil SE30, yeah. I yeah, a lot of the sort of, I mean, someone sent me a 7300 to recap, and it didn't. There was the computer had problems, and it still had problems after recapping. Recapping didn't fix it. I don't think there was anything wrong with the caps, to be honest. They didn't look like they were leaking at all. But you know, this is the customer said, you know, can you recap it? It's like, yeah, I can recap it. That sucked. That has so many freaking caps on it. If anyone ever sends me a 7300 to recap again, I'm going to charge them so much money. Because there's caps on both sides of the thing. For goodness sake. Trying not to swear. Yeah, well, if you ask me, the cursed SE30 was a walk in the park compared to your SE30 there, Joe. I am looking forward to it. I'm mainly looking forward to seeing your work close up, because I just saw little bits of it in the live stream there of all the little traces that you've ran across the board from one side to the other and stuff like that, and I want to see it. Oh dear. Oh, Ron, hello. Thank you for joining. Ah, did you? Okay. So, Ron, you guessed it by me saying my least favourite. Did you guess it because of the picture in the thumbnail, or did you just figure that was the one that I didn't like? Okay, fair enough. That's good to know, Joe. Thank you very much. Yeah, the SE30 blank board for a transplant. Well, I think that would have to be the next option. Um, yeah, well, there'll be a merciless public shaming if I get it working. If I don't get it working, there'll be a merciless public shaming of me, won't there? So, I can't really win either way. And if I get it working, you know, sort of, I'll probably, Joe and Steve will probably never talk to me again. And if I don't get it working, you know, sort of, everyone will be like, "Oh, what a waste of time sending it over to Australia." Yeah. Oh. Well. Should be fun though. Micro Mage Repair, hello. Yeah, but anyhow, look, SE30, I do love working on them, and I love keeping them going. Had a really interesting one the other day. This is one that I actually worked on a live stream. And it was one where the customer had sent it to me saying they couldn't get the thing to work. They kept on getting the SEMA CMAC, you know, mottled, you know, that kind of pattern on the screen. And I, first thing I did when I grabbed it here, I sort of put some RAM in it, my own RAM, and it just fired straight up. And anyhow, the customer contacted me and said, "Look, I saw your live stream." He said, "Look, it's not the RAM. I know that RAM works. That RAM works in another computer, so it can't be the RAM." So anyhow, I did a whole bunch of testing, and that testing included using that RAM in my own SE30 and trying lots of different combinations of RAM. And what I basically found out, the conclusion I came to, was that RAM, although there was nothing wrong with the RAM, it didn't work in the SE30. The SE30 can be pretty finicky with the RAM that you put in it, and the RAM that he had just did not work in the SE30. Didn't work in my SE30 either. Oh wow, I've gone out of sync. Ron, thank you very much. Super chat. Thank you very much for that super chat. Look at that. Just turns up and super chats me. How cool's that? Thank you very much. You know, super chats only cost $5. This is true. That's all. That's all. Just $5. Anyone can do it. Anyone can do it. All right, let's put some caps back on this, hey? Let's pop a cap in his board. Stop looking shiny. Dry, you. Dry. Oh, look at that. $4.99. Wow. And of course, that's US dollars. So that's like gold in Australian dollars. Okie dokie. Alrighty. Alright. My watch is telling me it's time to stand. No, I will not be bossed around by my watch. Alright, so I need a recapping guide. Where will I find one? Well, I'll find one in this folder. But if you don't have this folder, you can go to recapamac.com.au. Justin, thank you very much. Look at all these people throwing these super chats at me. Thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Justin. Oh, here comes another one. Thank you. Is that Muon? Muon. Thank you, Muon. Look at that. $5.01. That's Canadian dollars. That's about the same as Australian dollars, I think, from memory. Here we go. Here's my LC2 recapping guide, and you will find that on the website. Okay, all right. Here we go. Come on. Got to get this done. I'm running out of time. What time is it? Oh, it's late. Right, so this one here, 17 capacitors. Yay! Let's start off with the one that there is only one of, and that is 1 microfarad 50 volt. Grab that. I always keep a good supply of all of these commonly used sizes, but thankfully the 1 microfarad 50 volt, most Macs, if they have that one, have only got 1 or 2 of them on there, so I don't need to keep a big supply of that size. Okay, so yes, it is 12:51 my time. That is exactly correct. That is the time it is here right now. And where's this cap go? Huh? This one goes right up here. Whoopsie. It's scary when I do that. Okay, so 1 microfarad 50 volt goes right here. Just like that. And going to plonk the capacitor on. This is one of these capacitors that kind of barely fits on there. I should be using smaller ones, but no, I'm not. Oh, far out. Time to go shopping. Oh, okay, no worries, Dana. Enjoy your shopping. Have fun shopping. Charles, thank you very much. Well, look at that, $7.99 in Australian dollars. It has been a very, very prosperous live stream here. Maybe I just need to start asking for them. Say, hey, everyone, give me a super chat. Who knows? Might work. Does help. It definitely does help. I can tell you that. Maybe a little bit helps. Because I can tell you that the old recapping side of things at the moment has been very difficult. It's the biggest issue I have with recapping in general is, number one, there's just so much, but the other is that it doesn't just end when I finish recapping these things. I also have, I'm melting the serial number. Oh no, Charles, I melted your serial number, look. Oh no. No, there you go, now you can look. Melted it. You'll barely notice, I promise you'll barely notice. Barely. Yeah, the big problem is that it doesn't just finish with me finishing the recapping job. I also then have to obviously clean the board, and then I've got to go in and test the board, and then I've got to pack the board up, bubble wrap it, stick it in a box, get a postage label, do the whole thing, take it to the post office. I spent an entire day just on packing and dispatching boards the other day. A whole weekend day, whatever it was, a Saturday or a Sunday, doing nothing but getting boards, wrapping them up, putting them in bubble wrap, putting them in boxes, making sure everything was padded properly, printing out postage labels. It's an incredibly time-consuming part of the process. Maybe one day I'll be able to afford an assistant and they can do that for me, but I'm not there yet, that's for sure. We have one 100 microfarad 6.3 volts. Let's grab one of those. Oh, look at this. Still going. Eric Smith, thank you very much. The melting serial number will affect that LC's warranty status with Apple. Yeah, well, it's still readable. The barcode's still readable, trust me. Look. You'd never know. You would never know. It's just the thing that I'm annoyed about is I was so careful with the removal of the cap. And then, never mind. It'll still work. So, yeah, assuming you've got Apple Care on this one, your warranty won't be affected. $100 microfarad, 6.3 volt. 100 microfarad. It's going to be tricky, this one, because I've got to get right down in here And I'm not going to be able to do that with my normal soldering iron tip. So when I get stuck with a difficult one like this, the first thing I do is I get the component stuck down on the easy side. So I'm going to get this one here as far over this way as I can, so that it gives me a bit more room on the other side. And I'm going to solder that down. Like that. So that's stuck down on one side, then I need to stick it down on that side. And I'll need to use one of my fancy pants soldering iron tips, which I'm going to use a bent conical tip, which always upsets Jay from House of Moth. He gets very upset when I use conical tips. Very upset. Ah, good, thank you. Charles forgives me for melting a serial number. You'll never know. You'll never know. Promise. Alright, so this is the bent conical tip that I have, and as you can see I'll be able to squeeze that into that little gap. Yeah, like that, hopefully. And get some solder there where I need it. Without melting anything. Yay! How good's that? This is about having the right tools for the job. So he's stuck in place, that's fantastic. Incidentally, the number on there, 107. That's 10 followed by 7 zeros, which is, what is that, 100 million? 100 million picofarads, which works out at 100 microfarad. That's our maths for today. No more maths. And by maths I mean maths, not Married at First Sight. Does anyone watch that show, Married at First Sight? Anyone out there a Married at First Sight fan? I'm probably going to need that conical tip again because there are lots and lots of capacitors that are very close to each other on this one. Okay, I'm going to get the 347s put down in the corner, and all the rest are 10 microfarad 16 volt. So let's get these three down here. Where am I? Here. Come on. Two people watching. Thank you to everyone who is watching. I do appreciate it. And once again, thank you to everyone for all of these super chats. It's wonderfully generous of you all. I do appreciate it. Maybe it's because it's Saturday night in the US and other parts of the Northern Hemisphere, and maybe people are having a few wines or something like that, and they're feeling super generous. I reckon I'd be a sucker for super chats if I was watching live streams on a Saturday night with a few wines in me. Oops, there we go. Okay. My favourite Aussie show is Danger 5. I don't know that one. Danger 5. I've never heard of it. Danger 5. I'm going to have to look that up. Danger 5. Danger 5. Danger 5. Resistors are much easier. Resistors are easier on the little surface mount ones, but I flat out refuse to learn the colour codes for the through-hole ones. Danger 5. Danger 5. Australian action comedy television series premiered on SBS 1, 27th February 2012. Wow. Okay, right, I'm going to watch it. It looks interesting. Never heard of it. Never heard of it. But I am going to watch it now. So there you go. Hello, Adam McG. No, Joe, no. I flat out refuse. I will simply use a little app where I look up the colour codes. I am not going to commit that to memory. I refuse. In this day and age, I would imagine that we have the technology to print little numbers on the side of those resistors. I refuse to learn the colour codes. Nuh-uh. And of course, there's also the assumption that I've committed to memory the order in which colours appear on the spectrum. I haven't done that either. I've committed a few Pantone numbers to memory. I can tell you a few of those. I even know the CMYK breakdown of some of them. That's just a result of working in the printing industry. Joe's giving us mnemonics. Whoopsie. I've gone and done it. There we go. Actually managed to have breakfast before I started live streaming today. It's a bit of a rarity for me. I started a little bit, excuse me, later than usual. Alright, there we've got those 47s on there. Let's just make sure they're around the right way. Stripe pointing to positive, stripe pointing to positive, stripe pointing to positive. And once again, here's the number 476, 47 followed by 6 zeros, so it's 47 million. So 47 million picofarads, which is 47 microfarads. There we go. That's about as fast as I can talk. Okay, so who here wants to demonstrate their vintage Mac knowledge and tell me how much onboard RAM the LC2 has? From back in the days when computers had onboard RAM. Okay, 10 of the 10 microfarad, 16 volt. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Come on. 7, 8. 9, 10. Now you watch me lose some of these before I get them on the board. Okay. Let's get some flux happening. By the way, if you're wondering what this little red dot is, that's component adhesive. Don't ask me why it's there, but that's what it is. Stuff that they would use to hold the components in place before they got soldered on. They have a machine that goes in and squirts it out. Squirt, squirt, squirt. Right, I think I've got flux on all of those. Let's start putting some components down. 2 megabytes on board. Some had 4. Huh. Yeah. For two SMD components with a hand iron and no microscope. Fun stuff. No, but I wouldn't do that. That's why I have a microscope. Joe, when are you getting a microscope, for goodness sake? Surely it's a tax deduction for you. A business write-off. And they're a lot cheaper for you to buy over there than it was for me to buy this one over here, because the shipping to get this microscope from the US to here was expensive. Hey, what's C13? Oh, there's another 4. There's 2 more 47s I forgot about. Alright, I'll do all the little ones first, and then I'll come back and do those last 2 47s. Yeah. That's what happens when you don't read the recapping guide that you pick up from recapamac.com.au. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I wonder if the person who designed this board was just like, you know what? We're going to load this thing up with surface mount electrolytic capacitors, and you know what? This is going to leak in 30 years, and that's going to make some computer restorer really happy because they have all this work to do. Oops, so I'll have to. What size is? What size? You can tell me because I never remember this stuff. Hang on. I can show you what the smallest component I've ever soldered is. So I think I have it here. Yeah, here it is. So, this is a thing that I did a long time ago. Unfortunately, I don't think the guy who made these is selling them anymore. It's a shame because they're fun. And I really wish he did sell them. But this is the thing called an electronics hobbyist torture test. And basically what you do, you start off with a few resistors here. There we go. Starting off with 1206. That's the size. That's the package size. It's based on the width and the length. That's where the numbers come from. It's in inches, I think, isn't it? Fractions of an inch or something like that. I can't remember. I don't think it's millimeters. Put it that way. So 1206. There we go. These are nice and easy. Yummy. 1206 easy. 0805. Yeah. There we go. Getting a little bit smaller, but still quite manageable. 0603. Now we're getting really interesting. You think it's millimeters, is it? It could well be. 04. Yeah, actually, it probably is. You know. 0402. There we go. Now we're starting to get down to the little guys. So it can't be. Is it millimeters? I don't know. Someone will know. Okay, but the fun's only just starting. 0201. Let's have a look at those little guys. Yeah, there we get those stuck down. But you know what? That's not the end. That's the end. 01, 005. 4 of them soldered down there on the board. That was fun. I can tell you that. But anyhow, I can tell you one thing. You do not want to do those without a microscope. I can tell you that for absolute certain. 0603 is 0.06 inches by 0.03. Okay. 0603. Yeah, I thought that. I mean, I know there is a code for millimeters as well, but I'm pretty sure these are the inch codes. I'm pretty sure. So anyhow, that was a fun little job. This does work, by the way. I can't demonstrate it to you now because there's no battery in it. If I had a battery, I could show you. So yeah, fun. If anyone wants to, if that guy who makes them, if he does ever make them again, I'll put a link in there someday because they're good. They're definitely a good test for honing your surface mount soldering skills. There are kits, of course, that allow you to do that. I have one just here. I might put a link in this later on if I think of it. This is a kit that I bought on, or could have been Amazon, could have been AliExpress, I can't really remember. And it is a surface mount. Let's just change the view here for a second. Top view. This is it here. It is a surface mount soldering kind of test. You go in and you stick a whole bunch of components on, and you get little flashing lights, which is kind of cool. I'm going to be building that in a future video. I've got a whole series of videos that are in production at the moment, based around soldering techniques, and one of them will be surface mount soldering, and I will be demonstrating it with that kit. Let's get some components stuck down here, shall we? Anyone who has watched a lot of my live streams might recognise that I'm actually using smaller components than I would normally. These ones here, as you can see, they're quite small, but they're all the right size. They are the right, sort of a rating, 16 volt. Oopsie. And it's 10 microfarad, 16 volt. Down. And I am really struggling to get it straight. And to add to it, the sun is shining in my eye at the moment, and I am not enjoying it. Right in my eye. And I don't have a blind. Hey, there's one little cap down. It is in inches. There we go. See? See? See who was right? It was me, wasn't it? Oh, I have my moments. I have my moments. I think when you have to point out that you're right because it happens so rarely, it says a lot. I always like these to be straight, and there's a very good reason for that. When you when they're all together like this in close proximity, when one is crooked, it really stands out. If it's just one floating on its own, not so much. But when there's a whole stack of them all close to each other like that, if you have one that's crooked, your just eye is drawn straight to it afterwards. And when people are actually paying me to do this, I want to make sure that when they get it back, they look at it and go, "Oh wow, good job! You did that way better than I could do it," rather than, "Oh wow, that's crooked. I could have done that." I'm not saying any of my clients actually talk like that, because I don't think they do. Get back down there. Got to move this along, because I tell you what, I've got so much work to do today. I have to repair an air filter, which just decided to give up the ghost the other day. I have to write a whole stack of code for a product launch that's happening tomorrow. And when you're launching something that that's not finished yet, it's not good. I mean, it's something that's kind of, I can just say, "Hey, it's working now." No one's actually going to check. I could lie to them and say, "Hey, it's working now," and it's not. But I prefer not to do that. It does kind of spoil your professional reputation. You have a light, bright kind of kit on my web store. Okay, put a link to it. Would you? Joe? I don't know. What does it do? What is a light bright? What is a light bright? Light bright next. I don't know what a light bright is. Okay, I'm going to click on it. This might tell me what it is. I'm going to try and speed this up because we do want to test this today. I know that's what everyone's waiting for. They're all waiting for the test. Don't try and tell me otherwise. Oh, okay. Yeah, I see. Okay. All right. I see what a light bright is now. I see. You know, I reckon every car should be equipped with something like that in the rear window. You know, so that you get an opportunity to write messages to other drivers. I'm talking about things like thank you and have a nice day, of course. I'm not talking about a little graphic representation of the middle finger or something like that. No. It's one of the things that actually I find quite frustrating when it comes to driving in general. Well, it's probably more a statement of the world than of driving, but the fact that we have a gesture that we can make with our hand to say to someone, I am not a fan, I do not like you. But we don't have a hand gesture for I apologise. Isn't that a shame? You know, if you're in a situation where someone cuts you off or something like that and you're thinking, look at this guy. But then they would actually give you a gesture to say, I apologise, or it was a mistake, you know, that sort of thing. You know, you'd probably be more likely to not get upset about it if someone actually apologised for it. But no, we don't have that. All we have is a nice big middle finger gesture to say, I am not a particularly big fan of yours. How did... Oh, okay, I know how that happened. That was my fault. Can't blame anyone else for that. Right, so, I forgot about 247 microfarad 16 volt capacitors. I just realised I've got this here. Oh, okay, now I can see it. Alright, here we are. What sort of code are you writing? I mean, what language? I am coding in PHP, which is probably the language that I code in the most. I do a little bit of JavaScript here and there as well, but PHP is probably the main language that I work with. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be coding. I am one of the main projects that I'm working on at the moment is a loyalty rewards program system that people sign up for and earn points with purchases, which of course is not a new concept, but we are adding features to that at the moment. We are making it so that it does stuff with competitions. So members who spend a certain amount of money in a certain time, at a certain time, they get automatically entered into a competition, and then they get the name pulled from a hat. And if they win a whole bunch of points that they can spend at their venue of choice. So, yeah, and that's that. Right, so. Alright, I'm missing a lot of things here. You know, it's funny, when I bought this microscope, I really didn't think I was ever going to stick a camera on it. Or if I did, I was only going to take stills and not video. And I actually got myself a really nice quality still camera for it. But then I decided I wanted to start video recording what I was doing. And so then I got a different camera that allowed me to do that. They do make signs like that for cars, so that's good. Andre Kuljian? I can't really make that out very well, unfortunately. My eyes and whatnot. Hello? Oh, illegal, fair enough. You're doing a client project in PHP too, yeah. I'll be honest, I like working in PHP. It's one of my favourite languages. Been fiddling with Python, so that's another good one. The product and get a coupon for a free item. Isn't that cool? Yeah, so I've got a few kind of online projects. People may not have heard of these before. If you have a look for Certificate Magic, that's one of my little PHP projects, and that is where you choose a template of a certificate and you put in some text and it will punch out a PDF file of a certificate with your name on it, then you can go and get printed out. It's just a little bit of fun. It's meant to be a little bit of fun. I do regularly get people contact me saying, "Excuse me, can you please set me up with a certificate so that I can get a degree in science from this university?" No, I can't do that, sorry. That is how those people sound. Yeah, that's that's one of my websites. It's very old, unfortunately, so don't get too critical of the way it's set up. But as I say, it's certificatemagic.com. And I've got another one called Impose Online, and that's one that does printers impositions online. So you upload a PDF, and then you can lay them out as printers pairs and that sort of stuff. Gets used a lot. So there's some of my online sort of PHP projects, but on the whole, what I do for people is I do kind of custom development. So people contact me and they say, "Oh, I want to set up a system that does this, or set up a system that does that," and I build it for them. Give you an example. I have built a system for care workers, people who care for people, to record the time they spent caring, because obviously those care workers get paid for the work they do, and so they go in and they record information about what care they have provided and to whom and for how many hours and all that sort of stuff, and then that all gets tallied up and then they get paid based on the hours they put in. So I do those sorts of things where I go in and I create kind of like, let's call them web apps, online consoles for things. That's probably the main thing that I do. Yeah, so, and I have a relatively small handful of clients, but they keep me busy, and I'm currently not showing you what I'm doing, which is nice of me, isn't it? Is the sound chip labelled on the board? I need to find that on mine and test it. The sound chip is labelled, it's UB10 on the board there. It is UB10, and then it's got DFAC written under it. So that is the sound chip. It's right here. Right here. Now that did actually have writing on it before I started today, and I can probably make the writing appear with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol. Let's see if we can make the writing appear. Come on, writing. Or not. Nope. Can't see it at all. It was there before. It's come off with the heat or something. Yeah, Apple serial number. Yes, I forgot about that. I've done a little bit of work with that, but it's not my fault. It's not my fault. I finished it. I didn't start it. That is a work in progress. We are making Apple serial number.info. It's Apple serial number info.com. We are making it better. Is the view in your eyepieces wider than what we see on camera? It absolutely is. And the thing is that when I look through the eyepieces, I see a big circle. And what you're looking at, of course, is a rectangle taken from inside that circle. So I see quite a bit outside. So, we're looking at this 47 microfarad capacitor here. I can probably see maybe the height of two more of these capacitors upwards and same downwards. So anyhow, everyone, Apple serial number info.com. Jay from the House of Moth just put a link there. And if you click on that and you jump across to that website, not only are you able to look up serial numbers for your Macs, if you scroll down to, where is it? Mac of the month? Where is it? Come on, load. I'm having some issues here at the moment. What's going on? I'm not getting any of the pictures on the Mac, on the voting for the Macs. What's happened? Is something broken? Oh dear. There's something weird going on. It's probably just me. I'm not sure if I can... Let me just try... Oops. Did you break the website, Jane? Let's have a look. Oh well. Assuming it was working. Assuming it is working and that it's just me having a problem. You got to vote for your Mac. You got to vote for Mac. And I voted for the Mac Pro mid 2012 mainly because I like it. But you vote for whatever you want to vote for. Alright. Something broke. Hole is all wonky. Uh-oh. Okay. I had better sort that out. We want to fix that because that pole needs to be unwonky ASAP. So I am continuing to suck solder out of these holes because I am going to stick a socket on this so that we can add a floating point unit, FPU. A Motorola 6888888888882. A few too many 8s there. It's working in the States. Well, that's good. I may end up changing over to my gigantic tip for this. I generally have more success getting solder out of these holes when I use my gigantic tip. I'm going to go through quite a lot of wick here, but that's okay. Wick's not super expensive. So we are correcting the wrongs of Apple today. This is Apple being mean and not putting a socket on this to save money, to make the LC2 cheaper. They deprived us of a socket for adding a floating point unit. Like the mean people they still are. Got myself some air tags the other day. They're kind of nifty things, aren't they? The thing I'd be interested to test, because I have had some of these like taggy type things before, for me the measure is of having them work when you need them to work. I used to have a little tracky thingy, I can't remember what it was called, what brand it was, some little tracky thingy, and it never used to work when I wanted it. It would work when you're testing it, but when you actually lose your keys, you press the button and it wouldn't respond. So this is going to be a very interesting thing to test whether these Apple AirTags actually work when I want them to, when I do actually genuinely lose something. And I've done a nice little 3D printed holder that I got off Thingiverse. Ow, ow, ow. I've gone through some wick today. I hope I've got another spool somewhere. That one is well saturated. Saturated. Here we go. Here's another one. I think I'm going to need to buy some more though. Be a good excuse for a walk up the road. Oh, I got AirTags and haven't submitted the serials. I didn't even notice I had them. Hang on, you've got AirTags. You don't need my serial numbers if you've already got your serial numbers, do you? Do you? I mean, I will if you want me to, but I just wouldn't have thought that was necessary. Okay. What's being pulled out here? So this is actually me cleaning out the holes from where Apple, in their infinite wisdom, decided not to put an FPU socket on this LC2 board. So this is me, as I was saying before, righting Apple's wrongs. And I am going to actually, come on, you thing, you. And I'll just add some more solder to this. This is the first really stubborn one I've come across. I see no, Dana does stuff here. He might be cross at me because I told him PageMaker sucks last night. Or maybe he's just doing stuff. We're nearly done. This is definitely the most tedious part of this process. Come on. Okay. Okay. What sort of apps and functions does the FPU help with? Now, it's a good question. I haven't actually done any testing to really say specifically this will work well with this. I would imagine it would be the sort of thing that would probably help with things like maybe a unsharp mask or a Gaussian blur sort of filter in Photoshop, or maybe resizing an image, something like that. I suspect it would probably help with those sorts of things. I am guessing. I don't know for certain. You know, it is those more complicated calculations, the ones that use larger numbers rather than smaller numbers, that a FPU helps with, what they refer to as float numbers. Anyone who does any work with databases will be familiar with the term float. If you're a bit of a SQL fan, and you might be dealing with, you know, setting up a field that's either an integer or a float. Float is where you store bigger numbers, and you store numbers with decimal places. Excuse me, yeah. Right here. I didn't even have to go up and find this thing. There's more here, more here. And what we have here is a socket. Anything not an integer or really big numbers, yeah. So when we're referring to integers, this is something that obviously programmers are well aware of. Integers are a number that is a whole number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they're all whole numbers. 1.65, that's not an integer. Okay, so now we've got a whole bunch of holes in here. That's awesome. We're going to stick our socket on. And we need to make sure we put it on with the right orientation. Here is a little white dot. That little white dot is indicating pin 1 of the PLCC, or plastic leaded, is it leaded chip carrier, PLCC. I've only ever read it. I don't know how it's supposed to be pronounced, but anyhow, I assume it's leaded because they're leads. Now, have I managed to get all of these holes wholly? That's the question. So this has a little arrow here. That arrow is pointing to pin 1. So I just need to make sure that that arrow lines up with the white dot. And then hopefully, if I've got all these holes right, I've got most of these holes right. Got a bit of a bent pin here. Get in there. Right, there must be one still filled in. Oh, there is. This one. This one, still filled in. Can't see him. Still filled in. See, Joe's explaining FPUs perfectly here. So, Joe, what do you think would be what would be a task that you think an FPU would assist with on an old Mac LC2 like this one, other than a speed benchmark? There we go. Goes in beautifully. Now we just need to solder it in. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just tack in a couple of holes. And this is how I do this. I go top view. So I'm holding it from underneath. I don't want it to fall out. I want to hold it nice and flush to the board. So holding it, holding it flush like that. And then I'm going to get some flux here, just maybe a few, just got to just tack it down into place. Then I'm going to get a whole stack of solder on the end of my iron, like this. And I'm just going to, using that flux, make the solder transfer onto the pin. Now, this is not the way you're meant to do through-hole stuff. It is really not. I'm only doing it this way because I don't have a third hand. And what I would normally be doing is I would have one hand holding the solder, one hand holding the iron, and one hand holding that component in place. But because I don't have three hands, I have just tacked that in place, and now I can solder the rest. So let's have a look. Let's just get that in focus because we're actually a little bit higher now. There you go. See, this is where I tacked. There's one little tack, and then I can go in and solder the rest. Now, some people like to drag solder through hole stuff. I am not one of those people. I generally prefer to do each pin one at a time. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, my goodness, why wouldn't you drag solder it? And right now, I'm starting to question that. But I do actually prefer to do it this way. I just feel like I like to be able to give each pin the attention it deserves. Don't get me wrong, I love to drag solder. Mr. Drag Solder, they call me. They don't call me that. I can't back up that claim. There's a fume extractor in the wrong place. Okay, push update back from the 68 max, I believe. Yes, it does. FPU system, only 3D renders, graphics manipulation, video transcoding, audio transcoding. Yes, and of course the other thing you need to remember, Stephen Fox, is that just because the LC2 came out in 1992 doesn't mean it wasn't used for many years after that. So they might have come out in 1992, but it could have still been used in, say, 1995 or later, and you would quite happily use probably Photoshop 3 on this, I would think. I think Photoshop 3 would run on this okay, on the System 7.1. You need a bit of RAM, of course. I used to actually do a bit of old 3D on an old Mac back in the olden days. I used to use an application called Strata Studio Pro. And an earlier version of Strata Studio Pro is what actually used to, I think it was just called Strata Vision or something like that. Used to be used on, was used to make mist. So how about that? Nearly done, folks. Everyone's right now just saying, God, I wish he did drag soldering on these. Nope. 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 Okay. We have a socket. Oh, okay. Got to see this one. Oh, Dana, I do like that. I do like that. I can really relate to that one. Oh, horrific. That's the stuff of nightmares, that thing. LC low cost, that is correct. Mr. Fahrenheit, thank you for joining. LC with Photoshop that pull me from Amigas to the Mac. Yay! Right. Okay. So I'm pretty much happy with this now. I think we can go ahead and test it. Now, one of the things that I am going to need to test this, because it is an LC, is a battery. So let's get a battery. We'll plop that in here. Just get this. Sometimes these come off real easy. Sometimes they don't. Okay. Pop him in there. Oh, I didn't bring my SCSI to SD down. Oh, it doesn't matter. We can at least check to see if we get a picture and a chime, a little ding, a little ding. Does this battery work? I mean, this speaker, sorry. Maybe. Okay, there's a speaker so we can get some noise. I've got some VRAM floating around here somewhere. Come on, VRAM. There it is. VRAM. I think you need VRAM on these to make them work. I don't think there's any VRAM on board. I could be wrong. Certainly that's the case with the LC1. We've got RAM in there. I've got a power supply. How cool is that? Can't do anything without a power supply. So let's just start off seeing if we get a chime. We should at least see if we get a chime. Hasn't been ultrasonically cleaned. Sometimes ultrasonic cleaning is what they need before you get them to play along nice, but we'll see how we go. Plugging it into mains power there. 240 volts. AC. Shh. It's not the right speaker. The speaker may not even work. I haven't even checked that. I don't even know if this speaker actually works. What about this speaker? Let's try this one. Excuse me. Check that is around the right way. Yes, that is around the right way. I hear nothing. Let's check and see if we're getting some power for starters. I don't even know if this power supply works, to be quite honest with you. If I had to be perfectly honest with you, I do not know if the power supply works. Yeah. Now, let's pop that in there. 5 volts. 12 volts. Oopsie. Where's me minus? Minus 5 volts. So that's all working. So that part's working. So that's good. CPU's getting a little bit warm. So let's check and see if we're getting any image, because it might just be a sound-based issue. And if it's just a sound-based issue, just stick it in the ultrasonic cleaner. That'll almost definitely fix it. Getting my little screen here. Folks who have seen my live stream before will probably have seen the screen before. This is actually a little display that I use, display I use for when I'm recording videos, because it sits on top of the camera and I can watch what I'm doing. But today, it's actually a very capable little VGA monitor as well, so I can just use it for this. There we go. Right, so, whoopsie, sorry about that, folks. God, I bet you that sounded good. I just whacked the microphone with my big fat hands. Oop. Okay, well, we got something. It's not quite what I want, but we do have something. We've got... Let's just switch him off and on again. Off. On. So we're actually getting like a grey screen here, but we're not getting a mouse cursor. So that tells me that we're not quite there. It means some things are working, but not everything is working. So I am going to actually put this into the ultrasonic cleaner and then we'll check it. Now, unfortunately, I know it's so unsatisfying when this happens, because everyone's like, oh, I want to see it, I want to see it, I want to see it. And I get that, I understand. But of course, most of the time when I get into this state, the next thing I have to do is ultrasonically clean it. And I just don't, I don't like leaving people hanging while I've got the thing in the ultrasonic cleaner. It's noisy, it's awful. Just going to clean this up a little bit with some isopropyl alcohol, you never know. Just good to try. This certainly would not be the first time I had a computer that did not work after recapping. It's become a bit of a theme lately, hasn't it? I think the last one I did, the Mac 2 that I did last time, that worked at the end, didn't it? So that was quite good. That Mac 2 stopped working after ultrasonic cleaning, mind you. But it's only a minor issue. Easy fixed. Well, of course, the other thing is there's always that assumption that this VRAM is okay. Well, I don't know that it is. This VRAM could be shot. So we'll just give it one last crack of the whip here, and then I'll probably just wrap up the live stream. And as usual, when I get this working, I usually pop a little photo up onto my Facebook page. So feel free to join my Facebook page, to follow my Facebook page, Breakers Creations, because I do like to try and post things about what I have been working on. Not as much as I would like to, but I do like to do that. So let's just give this one last go. Just after that little bit of isopropyl alcohol cleaning. I don't expect it to make a difference, but we'll give it a go. I haven't even got the speaker connected at the moment, so I won't get anything there. Yeah, this looks the same. So typically what you would see with this when they start up, you would get this, oh, look at that, cursor comes up. The magic of cleaning, folks, the magic of cleaning. Let's plug in a speaker again so we can see if we get a chime. But I think that's basically done it. Switch. Well, we're part of the way there. Did you hear that? That was such a cool noise. I love it. So that's probably still related to some more cleaning needing to be required. The other thing, of course, is it could, of course, be a dead sound chip. I've had that happen before when you get really bad sound distortion like that. It can sometimes, God, the sun is shining right in my face. When you get really bad sound distortion like that, it can actually be because of the sound chip is gone. So once I've ultrasonically cleaned it, I will put it, I'll test it again. If I'm still getting a really bad sound like that, I'll replace the sound chip, assuming I have a spare one floating around, which I hope I have a spare one floating around, but we'll see. I mean, I think that might be one there, but I think this one's gone. That might be one as well. I think that's gone too. Let's hope. But anyhow, look, the main thing is that it does start up. We are getting a flashing question mark. I'm not going to bother booting it up to an operating system. We'll just have to be satisfied with a flashing question mark for today. Fire it up with a blue SCSI. You know, I can't fire it up with a blue SCSI. You know why? I sold them all. I started selling blue SCSIs and they sold so fast. I sold 10 in one day. And so now I'm getting some more stock. I'll have them for sale again next week. So for anyone in Australia who would like to buy a blue SCSI, either in kit form or pre-assembled, jump onto the Recapamac website. They are not in stock right at this very moment, but if you're watching this in the future, they may be in stock by then. Putting that in the bin, I'm hoping to remember that I don't want that actually thrown away, just keeping it there temporarily. Okay, so before I go, I just need to very quickly thank my good friends at PCB Way, link in the description. PCB Way, jump on there, prototyping PCBs, getting PCBs made, and also lots of projects and stuff on there. You can have a look at some other people's prototyping projects and get the boards done and make your own things. It's really cool. So yeah, and generally usually sort of 24 hour production to do a board, and then very fast dispatch and everything like that. So PCB Way, PCB Way, PCB Way. Okay, so back across to me with sun in my face. I'm going to lean back a little bit so the sun's not in my face. So plug speaker in 2-hole header. It was a fan. I was plugged into the 2-hole header. That's the fan there. Well, so let's go to the top view. That's the fan there, which is the three pins, and that's the speaker there, which is 2 pins. Nice and easy, though they don't get mixed up because obviously the fan's 3 pins and the speaker's 2 pins. Apple being very, very good about the way they build things and making sure that they make it so that you can't accidentally get them around the wrong way. Well, you can, but it's pretty hard to. So, just going down here, check on the chitter chat. So once again, thank you everyone for joining. I do appreciate it. Thank you for keeping me company. I've been on for, I don't know, a couple of hours, something like that. Yeah, I am going to clean this all up, and I'm sure I'll get sound out of it once it's all been ultrasonically cleaned. Everything will be fantastic. So everyone who joined, thank you for keeping me company. Thank you for watching again. I hope to see you at the next one, and all of you have a lovely time until next time. Bye. Oh, hang on, I've got to press the thing first. In stream. Okay, now, bye.